Yitzchak Griffin. Stop. Shh. Beten die ganze muss wegsetzen, mit schön Mamscher zusammen, Sach Charles und Chivas Benjone Kashrus. You have the schus to hear the she again, Chelik Sheni, the Harav, Agorin, Yechezkel, Auerbach, Shlita. Shh.
Yeah. What we were speaking about juices is just the problem is that many people, many of the juices, reconstituted juices that you have concentrate in them, and even though it says pure concentrate, many, especially apple juice from China, if you look on the bottle and it says made from concentrates from verschiedene places, if the word China is there, I don't care whose hechsher it is, you shouldn't be using it, because it's not. Nobody is as smart as the Chinaman is crooked, and it's not shayach in the Welt to guard yourself about how they're going to cheat you. And it is very common for them to use verfälschte apple juice. They put in corn syrup and apple flavoring, and during the year it's a hinaher, but for Pesach certainly it's inappropriate to use anything. Bechlal, anybody that uses anything from China on Pesach, befrat, for the whole year bechlal, will have no teretz l'asad lovay when they're going to ask, why did you eat treif? And you can say, because it had a hechsher, this hechsher, that hechsher, doesn't make a difference. Anything that says China, the word China on it, or PRC, it's dimchal reishcha for why you eat something like that. The Badatz is there now, other places are there now, they give the full-blown ahead, all these candies and these junk that they have. There's no question that they're not kosher, that they have who knows what in there. You can't trust the Chinese people. The meshkichim that they send there are halbgebacken. Nobody goes there, they don't let them in. They have a couple of guys doing hundreds and hundreds of plants. It's not lefi the ruach of a from kehillah.
What about plain apple cider juice?
Apple juice, if it's a reputable company.
Not apple juice, apple cider.
Apple cider. Apple cider is not just plain squeezed apples. And apple juice is just, they literally just take the apples and squeeze them and take the juice. Apple cider, they let it ferment. They have to add their fermentation something to it. Is it okay? Probably. It doesn't require a great hechsher. I mean, anybody, as long as you have somebody who's aware of what they're doing and what they're using them, and the company should be aware that there's some companies you come out not shaykh. I don't think 5 times in my whole career where you found companies that dafka went to cheat and but unless they're in China. But in America, they'll do it occasionally. 99% of the time, it's because they didn't know. No one ever told them what you're supposed to do. They didn't realize that this is part of it. They changed an equipment. They changed an ingredient. They changed the flow. There are many things that, as long as someone's on top of it, it shouldn't be a problem.
Gabi, wines. We spoke many times about the wines. That wines need a very, very, very good pikuach, especially wines that come from other places. Is there any change, or it's basically the same what it was the past few years?
The halacha has not changed. The fact that it's a very difficult process. I was just handling mamash yesterday. Somebody wanted us to carry a certain grape juice in MPGS, and I told him that I'm not so sure. The hechsher, he says, no, there's one guy, he does everything himself. I asked the person involved in the hechsher, I said, were you ever by a grape juice crush? He says, no. I said, if you were ever by a crush, you'd know that it's patently impossible for one person to do it. You can't. You cannot physically do it unless you're sitting in your table in your kitchen, squeezing grapes like this. Anything more than that, you need people. I said, if he's telling you that there's only one, he's the only person doing it, and you believe him, that's not a hechsher. So it's certainly so that the Metzias remains the same, that grape-derived products are very, very, very strong, and since many many places do not have their own yekev, their own winery. It goes into a much bigger shiloh, which is called metahar yena shel akum biyad akum. There are many simonim in Shulchan Aruch in Yordei Chelik Beis dedicated specifically to kli ayin, to maga akum, to nitzik chibur. The chumras when you see what I mentioned it before, I'll mention it again. The chachmas adam in the beginning of his akdama, where he talks about stam yenim and yain nesach, he says that people think that it's just gzeir drabanan because it's stam yenim is because yain nesach and bisman hazeh. People really don't care. It's just minig of a sefer b'yadeim. They don't really make nisuch. He says that the chachmas adam writes there. It's not a chassidish sefer. It's not a ma'aseh bichul. It's a halacha sefer. The Chachmas Adam says that it doesn't have to make sense, but the pegam of I don't even say the lashon that he uses. He says it's oiker nishmoshe from the shirish of where it is. That's the lashon that he uses. You say, why? It's something that's a gzeir drabanan, but it's not. But it's not. A person who's not nizer in grape products and wine, grape juice, these type of things, it's not a simple thing to do. So, and if mitar yenish akum biyad akum, and so the people say, yeah, but it's really mine. I took it. So you just ask them a very simple question: if after you make 100,000 gallons of grape juice, there's an explosion in the plant, and all the 100,000 gallons goes down the drain, and the guy comes to you and says, "Sorry, mister, you bought this. You pay me for it." If you pay, then it's yours. If you tell him go and collect from insurance, then which is what Rav Machshon was telling me. I asked him this question. He said, "No, the insurance will cover it." So it's a very serious problem, and you have to make sure that you have very strong hashgacha.
Which which grape juice are they?
From Eretz Yisrael, there are a couple of wines under the bedats. In Eretz Yisrael, by the way, it's much more difficult. You go into any wine store, and it's molly v'gadish. You have mamish the falling off the walls and all these little boutique type of thing. It's in Eretz Yisrael. There's a manafki. It's one of the interesting nafkaminas in Eretz Yisrael and Chutz La'aretz, that in Eretz Yisrael, Safek Arla is aser. In Chutz La'aretz, Safek Arla is muter. So that means that in a vine, the teva of a grapevine is that the vines have to constantly be renewed in order to be vigorous. So in Eretz Yisrael, the vineyards are constantly patching. The problem is that every time you were zomer, every time you graft a new branch, you start the whole 4-year process of Orla and Netter Avai all over again. So the Bedat has a special program. And in any vineyard that they do their hashgacha in, every single, not yekev, but every single vine has a number, and they have a spreadsheet of every vine, and any time that the guy patchkas with it, and he cuts, and he adds, and it's crossed off, and they can't use that. So when people say, yeah, it's the same vineyard, I know the Badatz makes there also, it's not mukhrach at all that it has the same level of kashrus. They spend a tremendous amount of pikud on their wine. The same thing, Rabbi Reuben in the B'das Mahadrin from Eretz Yisrael, those two. From France, there's Rabbi Zekbach, who is now, he's older, he's retired, but his son is not only a Talmud Chacham, who has written an extensive sefer on these halachas, but also has years and years of shimush. He's a very ehrlich person. He does tremendously good work. And Rabbi Rottenberg from Paris also.
What about America?
I was hoping you wouldn't ask that. There is a company called Armon in Ellenville, New York, that it's a small winery run by the family Schwartz, and they have a couple of different brands of wine. One is Armon. They have a line of schnapps called Stropkov. They have a couple of other things that they do, and I've been there many, many, many times because in MPGS we produce our grape juice there. So I go there for the crush. And the truck drivers don't even get out of the truck. That means when the guy pulls up with the truck, because people think it's a gewaldige heather. It's not just a heather. The Shach, Rabbi Yashiv held that with Me'ikar Din. The Shach seems to be mash like that. So I don't know why everybody holds the Grace of Chumrah. It's a Me'ikar Din. when they gather the grapes in what they call gondolas, and like these huge vats that they gather in, they bring. Now, by the time they bring this to the machine to dump it in, there are dozens, there are gallons and gallons of crush, because when the grapes, when they fall on top of each other, they crush each other, and there's already grape. It's called free run. Now, the halacha is that if you have something, everybody knows that if you make a crush, and you have the chatzanim and the zagim together with the juice, until you make hamshacha. Hamshacha means when you first take the stuff. Now, you gotta understand, everybody thinks that when you start to run, it's not true. That's not called hamshacha. That's hamshacha in the machine. But when the goy comes in, because they have to test for the sugar to see how much it's called bricks. So they go to the when after they crush, it's in the vat, and they start drawing it out. That's the tchilus hamshacha. So anything after that is really a problem, because if he puts it back in, so it's negiah de davracha the shachas matter, but it's already after the hamshacha. You've already started the process. So Rabbi Yashiv, like I said, I'll be the shach, that once the grapes are already in that vat, and there's already significant free run that's in there, that you have das to keep. Now, if you wouldn't care if it gets thrown out, so male, it's not called hamshacha. But once it's in there, and they start pouring it out, and when they pour out the grapes, the first thing that comes out is 10 gallons of juice, and you don't want that to go to waste, that's called hamshacha. So they're makbid there, they have their own guy. It's only a couple of Chassidish guys from Monroe, it's about half hour from Monroe. They're the only people that work there. The truck driver doesn't even unload it. They come with their own high-low, they unload it themselves, they dump it themselves, and every single after that is done only by Frum Yidden. There's nothing, there are no goyim ever. They do their own fixing, their own electrical work, and plumbing. There are no goyim ever on site. So you don't have problems with Riyas Akum, you don't have Shiloh with Maga Akum, all the problems that come up in a regular vineyard. And these are something that you can go out in the question recommend.
Grape juice or concentrate the mixing.
Here's the problem with concentrate. Everybody knows that you make a very hagafen on grape juice, and everybody else knows you make a Yechezkel on apple juice. The question is why? The Gemara asked the question, not my question. The Gemara asked the question: how can we make a Yechezkel on apple juice and you make a hagafen on grape juice or on wine? The Gemara says because it's nishtana le'iloi. Because the teva of grapes is that the juice is nishtana le'iloi, so it gets its own bracha. Now, there's also obviously a halacha that when something's not roy l'achila, it loses its bracha. If you take and you make grape juice concentrate out of grape juice, it is not roy l'achila. It's not roy l'shia. It's not roy for anything. So it has no bracha. If a person goes and takes a cup of grape juice concentrate and he drinks it, he makes no bracha at all, because it's not roy l'shia, it's not roy l'achila. So the question is, if you take grape juice concentrate and then you come along and you put water back in, you make it back into the equivalent, the chemical equivalent of grape juice. Mechtes, it has the bracha. Who's that? That's not a shtin law. You're taking something that had no bracha and you're making it edible. So you make a Yechezkel. Now it sounds funny, but this was the halacha, the psak of Rav Yosef, Rabbi Yashiv, and Rabbi Shlomo Zalman. Shlomo Zalman was mesupik about make hagafen, but he said certainly you cannot make kiddush. There's no question that you cannot make kiddush on reconstituted grape juice. So the question is, how much grape juice? So there's another problem that everybody knows, that wine in the time of the Gemara was very, very strong. So even if you water it down, chad b'sheish, even up to 1/6 is is wine, it remains a hagafen, because the wine is so strong and it's such a meshubach drink that it retains that. That's only if it's wine. The Gedolei HaPoskim of our Dor said that if you take grape juice, even according to the Poskim who hold you make a hagafen on grape juice, if you put water in it, if you water it down, you certainly it's a safek brachas, and certainly you can make kiddush on it. So these are questions that sorry?
Shakal.
You make shakal. You certainly have to make shakal. You can drink it. It's like apple juice.
Mayonnaise, is any brand good with any national hechsher, or it's...
Okay, so here's mayonnaise the question people think, that, it has vinegar, has oil. The vinegar and oil is not a problem at all. The problem is that mayonnaise is made out of egg yolks. It's what the recipe has 3 things in it. It's oil, vinegar, and egg yolks. It's a little bit spices, sugar, blah, blah, salt, and that's it. So the shaila is, it's not brought down in halacha. The idea of beya klufa, of having eggs which are left overnight, al-pi Kabbalah, so it's kind of interesting. The Pesach Tshuva brings down that sekanta chemura miyasura, that even if under normal circumstances there wouldn't be a problem, there's a tzad in halacha that you should have to be more machmer. That's, ask your Rav. But Rav Moshe brings down clearly in the Tshuva where he says that ein lach bo yos michidushay, that what the Gemara tells you is exactly what the Gemara means. These things don't go pi halacha. They go pi what the Kabbalah is. So therefore, if you crack eggs for commercial purposes and you put it away for use later, that's not nichlal in the gzeira of beya klufa. So that's what they have over here in these type of eggs. So that's, if somebody wants to be makbid in that, they can't use it. If somebody feels that that's not a hakpada, so Hellman's is certainly tastier.
Does it make a difference if it's made in the United States or other places?
Once you step outside the United States, you run many, many risks. I know Europe, people try to bring in stuff from Europe all the time. European hashgachas, again, it's a tremendous chesed from the Rabbeinu Shalom that in America there are over 12 million kosher consumers. The smallest part of that are from Yidden. There are millions of people that are vegans, that are Seventh-day Adventists, that for health reasons, for whatever reason, they're allergic, they look for kosher symbols. And therefore, when you come to deal with a company and you want to strasha them, you tell them, listen, 12 million people is a lot of people, and you're going to lose that market if you lose your hechsher. In Europe, when the Rabbanim come to look to do a hechsher, they come like this, oh please, there's a kosher. The company says, what do you bring me? 4 people in Manchester and 3 people in Gateshead. Like, they're not even going to bother changing the... So that's why the European hechsherim, they don't have hechsherim on the same, they have lists, and they talk, and they go once a year. The company says, what do you bother me? You can't come more than once a year. And then you can come to the office. No, they come once a year with an appointment, they sit in the office, and they tell them, listen, did anything change? No? Okay, fine. I mean, this is... In Europe, they have to live like that, because hey, chas v'shalom, chazagnet. But to say that where we have other options, just because a Haimish guy brings it in from Europe, that's called a hechsher, it's not a simple thing to say.
How about ketchups? Tomato sauces, tomato paste.
Tomato products are very suspect for the following reason. In Baruch Hashem, it's not nimtza by us, but in Lahavdil, in the gas, it's very common to have tomato products that are value added. They have pieces of not kosher product in there, they have cheeses mixed in there, they have other things that are mixed in there. And obviously they go in the same kalim. So it requires any processed tomato product, you have to be very, very clear that you're dealing with a well-constructed hashgacha. L'mashal, Heinz ketchup is an excellent company. Once a year they make treif, and the OU has a mashkiach there. Hashgacha to me is for the treif.
That's the one that's made in the United States.
That's made in the United States.
There's other ones also.
Right. I'm saying, but the stuff made in the United States, they have a mashgiach when they're making treif to make sure that they don't have it any other time, that when they finish, they kasher up the whole thing, and they get the ingredients out of the plant, and the rest of the year they do the regular hashgacha, not hashgacha to me this. But other stuff that you see, you don't know where it is, and because of that, by the way, when you have, people think that if you have Haimish brands, it automatically means that you have a better product. You have to know that if the Rav Machsher has to know what he's going into, most often he's not going into a kosher plant. He's going into a plant that has no hechsher, and the person he sends there has to understand the plant well enough to know how to kasher it, to know what parts of different, they'll show him that this is the line that you're using. But you don't understand, I remember I was once in a plant where they had come and it was quite a kosher plant, but a Haimish hechsher had come in to do a production, and it was a fryer, and they didn't realize that when you fry, especially fish, they're constantly taking the oil out of the fryer and filtering it, and they store it in a certain shank and they feed it back in. So I came and I asked him, he kashed everything. I asked him about the surge tank. He doesn't know what a surge tank is. I said, what about the filter? He doesn't know what a filter is. So, no matter how good your intentions are, if you don't know the equipment and you're going into a place that doesn't have a hechsher, it's always a very big danger.
What's the story with oils? Which oils can we use straight away? You said canola, cottonseed, not a problem a whole year.
The oils that are made in the United States, it's not only is it not benimtze, it's kamat not shayach that you're going to come across a problem. That means the core oils: soy, canola, corn, cottonseed. But people don't use cottonseed except for Pesach. People use it all year. Okay. What?
Vegetable.
Vegetable. There's no such thing as vegetable oil. It has to have a kind of vegetable. For Pesach, people don't want to use cottonseed. They know that there's that the Gzuk they usually use cottonseed. But Lamaisa, they're hechsherim that want to sell it, and they know if it says cottonseed, people won't use it. They're a vegetable. And then on klein oisis on the side, which vegetable? Cottonseed. Or sometimes it'll say vegetable, vegetable margarine will be a soy oil that they hydrogenate into a margarine. But the good news is that these things, that the volumes are so huge, in the manufacturing that they don't mix it with other things. And even when they have to transport it, it's badik u'menusa, that the transport rail cars that they use are dedicated specifically for that item. Not only to the company, but specific items that they use. So you're going to have to be you have to go look zichen mit lech to find the problem. Now, you have other things, coconut and palm, stuff that comes from the Zweitens, that you have to be very careful about. I'm sorry? Olive oil it's a mayim shein lem seif. The single most counterfeited food product in the world is extra virgin olive oil. Over 85% of all complaints filed to the fraud department in the EU are from contaminated or counterfeit or artificial the things that are with oil. Now, for some reason, hechsherim haben sich eingerettet mishigas that since the olive oil is like the crown jewels, like in Italy and Greece, that's the national pride, they would never patch with it. First of all, it's sheker v'chasav. These people are the same shikra goyim that you have here. They're thieves and liars. You look on the side of the companies that are honest, and they'll say, made with oils from Tunisia and Liberia and Spain and Morocco and all kinds of other things. Now, they say product on front in Grace Isis, it says product of Italy, because Italy, in order to make money, made a halacha, they made a law that if it's processed, if it's bottled in Italy, you can say product of Italy. Because if you say product of Liberia, they say keep it yourself. Your product of Italy, ooh, they have to pay $16 for a little bottle. So they made a law that you're allowed to write product of Italy if you put it in the bottle in Italy. And it's a big problem. But since the Kashrus agencies, I've been fighting with this for decades, they don't want to hear this. They say, nah, they would never patchka, and even if they would, what would they put in? They put in soy, they put in, which is true. But it happens to be, there are maybe 3 or 4 documented cases where they put in chazer. It's true. But once a guy is a thief, who wants to go deal with this thief with something? So they're arguing. The Maisa, you have Geffen, and you have the Nirbat and the Velover have on their stuff only the stuff that says Kosher Pesach. Only on the stuff that says Kosher Pesach, they have a mashgiach there from the crush of the olives till it's in the bottles. Other stuff, I just simply don't know.
That's the only oil you can use, Geffen of olive oil?
I'm just telling you, I'll say it again. Geffen, Eretz Yisrael, you have a company called Zeta, but you have to turn around the bottle because some of the oil is from European sources. And they're not there when they're doing it. They're not standing Ashgacha T'midus. That's not. The Zeta from Eretz Yisrael is fine. But the Zeta not from Eretz Yisrael has the same problem that everything else has, where they're mixing in products from the countries. And no oil or no product is stronger than the weakest hachsher that they use. And if they use other hachsherim that are not that stringent about it, so they will malkal yikemach the whole thing.
What about recola candies? Which ones could be falazach that are definitely good? And there's a lot of new ones now.
There is one that is certainly bad. We'll start off with the one that says dual action, has glycerin in it. You should not be used with a sticker, without a sticker, and do it b'chlal, because it could mamish be treif.
He never did.
What? He just showed. Yeah, no, that's certainly, but. I'm sorry?
Are all the glycerins treif?
No, glycerin is not treif. But glycerin without a hechsher, that's a very good. It's a very good question. And what I tell people to do is that any medicine you buy has a number on it. A consumer, you can call them for information. Call them with the lot number that's on there and ask them if it's made from vegetarian. They have records. If they will tell you over the phone that it's vegetarian glycerin, you can be saimich on that, because they'll get into wealthy trouble if they don't. And therefore, but to use anything that has glycerin without checking it is a very, very dangerous thing. It's not something that should be. Gelatin's almost always treif. If gelatin, unless you know, not it says kosher gelatin, unless you know that the hechsher is a reliable hechsher, because there are a number of hechsherim that say kosher gelatin, they use pork skin, mamish chazer, mamish, and they say that they hold this kosher, so they're kosher gelatin. But gelatin is always assumed to be treif, until you know otherwise.
So the Ricola candies.
Getting back to Ricola candies. So the one that has the glycerin in it certainly should not be used with or without the sticker. There are a number of them that have no problem whatsoever. That means that the original, the mint, the lemon mint, the honey mint, the Tiber verbena, these things have no problems at all. There's a cherry, and there are two flavors. I don't know about the new ones that you're talking about. I'm talking about the cherry and there's something called fruit of the woods. Those two are kosher b'diavad, but if a person wants to stay away from b'diavad, then they can buy, don't use those. But the other ones are not a problem at all.
Which chewing gum is reliable enough? It's got with Ladatz and it's so God makes.
Yeah, Elite makes with the Badatz, but the Badatz, you'll notice, doesn't use their logo. They just say on because they don't.
But there's other Shem also. And
there's
even though they claim they are the same.
I don't know. The one that has Babad, the Elite that has Babad without the Ada, he told me, is the same run with the same stuff. Other stuff, there's double bubble from Canada with the OU, which is made in a totally kosher plant. That's certainly fine. Other ones, I just have no idea what they're. I'm sorry? Nicorette, the problem with the gum, the problem with the gum is the gum base. The gum base uses fatty acids as the base that they make it into vulcanized. It's actually basically the same process as making rubber for your tires. That's what they're making, and they use the same equipment to make it. And for the rubber, they do use treifa fatty acids, and they don't clean it out in between runs. So it's not only shaila of beliefs, there's real be'en there from the treifa stuff. To use it without a hashgacha is not responsible. I do not know of any nicorettes with hashgacha.
A lot of beers that are coming out now with flavors from different places in the world. You know that you're on top of the KSA, and you told me besides the two milky ones, they're fine.
Yep.
Same thing as schnapps.
I'll tell you about beer. I walked in. A friend of mine has a coffee shop in Lakewood, and he wanted to make for Shlachmanis. He wanted to make it's called coffee stouts. It's a type of a beer they use coffee with, and he wanted to. So there's a place in Lakewood, one of these craft breweries. So he asked me to come see if you can kasher it. So I went in to meet with the guy, and he said, it's interesting that you're asking. He said that a craft brewery, betivoi, will make anything. A craft brewery will make anything that you ask of it. He says that they have a family friend that has a minig that for Thanksgiving they make a beer with turkey gravy in the beer. So, that's, I asked him if it's unusual. He says it's not usual, but it's not unusual. And certainly there were half a dozen different flavors that had lactose in it, that had milchiks in it. So to use a beer, especially a craft beer, without a hashgacha is certainly not a responsible thing to do. And in fact, ACO has, as part of the guidelines, is that craft beers are not allowed without a hashgacha. But other beers, like the main beers that don't change, stuff like Budweiser, Sam Adams, these type of beers are not a problem. But these small niche type breweries, you never know what you have.
extra, why should you take it extra?
Yeah,
You have the same thing with schnapps.
I don't know. No, but it's, it's schnapps, and it's I don't know. It's a simon. Coffee beans, any unflavored coffee bean is not a problem. It means that if you buy just the bean, not flavored, it's not going to be a problem at all. Schnapps, it must be a simon of the Golas, but I know that when Yiddish menschen make a simcha, they sit by the chassan's tish and they have a bottle of schnapps with little glasses, little glazlach, and you want a l'chaim. No, it's l'chaim. You say l'chaim. The concept of a friend of mine is mashgiach. He was at a kiddush recently. Good. It was a very big simcha. They were married for many years. It was the first girl. $11,500 for schnapps. Now, I bought my first car in 1968 for $100, so I have a difficult time in dealing with $11,500 for schnapps. But L'man Hashem, with such a scotch and $400 and $500, I just don't. Why would a person? Somebody asked me, "Can I look into it?" I said, "No." I will not cooperate in any way to try to find out that you can spend $500 on a bottle of schnapps. It's for a few $100 you can marry off of Yisayim Yerushalayim, and you're drinking that at I don't know. So there's a website called crcweb.org. That's the CRC in Chicago, the Chicago Rabbinical Council. They have a younger man there. His name is Akiva Niehaus, a very ehrlich younger man of Ben Torah. He's very malumed in this, and he spends his time looking at this. And they have a very comprehensive list on their website of what is acceptable. So, it's very interesting that you ask that, because there are poskim that dance around the shaila. I'm telling you that the mumchim can not only tell you if it was a sherry cask, they'll tell you what kind of sherry it was, and the grace mumchim, who are mumchim in that wine, in that sherry, can tell you which part of the vineyard, because there are different yeasts in different parts of the vineyard, they can tell you where it came from. So if someone can say that that's bottle, so have a cheeseburger for lunch. I don't understand. I don't understand what nemtzach is. You can taste it. You're tasting wine. People now, you don't know that's what you're tasting, so go learn. You need They say the Shirim said, how's it shaykh that for 40 years in the Midbar, the Rebbeinu Shalom have weggenommen from Yidden the opportunity to do chesed. For 40 years, everybody had mon, everybody had the shit. Mamish, what do you do chesed? Yidden, a Klal Yisrael without chesed for 40 years? So he says no. He says in Arman, he would find this mon, he would say it should taste like a bagel. So the usher would say, no, come on, kid, I'll teach you what to be mechav until you make taste. That was the chesed he did. So these people that think that you can't taste it should go to an usher who knows what sherry tastes, and they'll say that's what it tastes. It tastes like wine. Well, first of all, sherry casks are very expensive, so it'll say on the label. If they will not hide that, it's not a secret for them. They might not tell you which sherry they're using, but if they spend money to get sherry casks, and by the way, the sherry casks all come in when they're shipped in from Spain, where they make the sherry. They have sherry in the casks, left there to keep it humidified so it shouldn't dry out. So it's I don't know, but it's so.
There's a few names on the bottle. It doesn't have to say sherry.
Yeah.
The other names I sent it out on my phone once.
I'm sorry. Straight whiskeys, especially bourbon, Kentucky whiskey is not a problem. Although now, you should just know, because people want to say, I'll eat straight whiskey. They have recently started aging some, it'll say it on the content. They've taken whiskey that used to be in mamish without a problem. They started aging that in wine vats now also, in wine casks. It'll be on the bottle, yeah, if they do it, that's the fakir. For them it's stolziert. Because stam Kentucky whiskey or bourbon is I'm sorry? In oak, it has to be good, aged in oak. In virgin oak, in the first fill, in first use of it. Yeah, but it would say it on the bottle.
I'll read you the names of the sherry. Sherry, Madeira,
yes.
Pedro, Oloroso, French cask.
These are different types of sherry casks. No, these are not name brands. These are stuff like Malaga and Tokay and these type of things. But yeah, those are different types of sherries.
Who checks such stuff that they're looking for?
I don't think most of them.
I said, they make strupkov, they make schnapps. I don't know. I'll tell you the truth. I don't drink ever. So to me, I can't. I have a difficult time doing zechariah in this because well, Hashem, I have enough other things to look at. This I can't see doing it. You dafka have to go take the old overhaul that you when you were a kid in a shtibel. What they had herring kichel and old overhauls. Take old overhaul. That's
What about vitamins?
Okay. You know what? Of them spitz gupel, I'm willing to move out to 100%.
What about vitamins?
Vitamins. Here's the concern with vitamins. First of all, you should just know that unfortunately, and it gives me no pleasure to say this, quite to the contrary, Yiddish pharmacies sell nevelis and trefis every single day and tell people, no, it's good for you need it for you, if you're gesund, you can take it. It's mamish. They have, you tell me, they have the capsules that are made from chazer gelatin. And why should you do it? Put it in a different one. Transfer it into a vegetable capsule. Do something. There's no reason whatsoever for them to do this, and they're eingechapt with this mishigas that you're taking it for your gesund, everything's fine. That's simply not true. First of all, there is no such thing as a medicine in the Torah. Because if you look on Shabbos, in Hilchos Shabbos, why can't you take medicines? Because it's a gzera, a schikas monim. What's made a schikas monim? That if a person has a headache, you're going to go out into your garden and you'll take one of these leaves and 3 of these leaves and this twig and you're going to spit into it and you'll mix it up, and that's medicine. Because that's what they used to have. Now, it doesn't have to say Pfizer or Moderna or something like that. A medicine is what the Rebbeinu Shalom put into the kaiches. When Yechezkel HaMelech was going as the Sefer Refuos, it wasn't the pharmacopoeia from the pharmacy. It was which berries and which brias the Rebbeinu Shalom B'Shafim to make you better. Now, the Gemara says that on Shabbos, when you're allowed to take medicines, if it's chas b'reisha, if it's not for limishkav, you can take it. So the Gemara says, yeah, but that's only if it's boduk and menusa. This is something that's a mumcha, and not only that, but the guy who gives it to you has to be a baki. Not just he read it in the book, and not only that, but the Chassam Sofer is a hapeldik tshuva from the Chassam Sofer. I mean, I'm not saying it's a halacha ma'aseh. You go talk to your Rav. The Chassam Sofer says that the teva of a yid and lahavdul the teva of a goy is so different that a doctor who spent his entire career only handling with goyim, if he tells you can be mechal Shabbos something, you can't listen to him because he has no mumchas, he has no bekiyas in vos heistas ayid. So he said it's a pella. But lemaisa, certainly to go that some guy or somebody, your sister-in-law told you that her brother-in-law said that his cousin saw on the internet that if you take this you're going to get better. You can't be samich in any of this. It has to be boduk menusa, and a lot of these mishigas that they have with the homeopathic stuff, it has lactose. It's not kosher. So good, you're not kosher. You can do that. It is not, but something that is not. There's no reason to assume it's going to work. You certainly cannot be makeable because of that.
Why so many medicines there with the caps that are not kosher? What changed?
Why
did they put it from cows? They always use from cows. I called them up many times, different companies.
It's cheaper. It's just cheaper. It's just a question. When you have gelatin, the gelatin companies, it's called A and B, type A and type B. One is bovine from cowhide. The other is from pork skin. And it's now the problem is that even if you want to be matir b'di'evid, so the gelatin from cowhides, because it was not royal achila, because all the kosher gelatin that they make is all based on the fact that the skin, the cowhide, was never something that's that's royal achila, and then you go and you make sure it doesn't have any flesh, whatever it is. But the Gemara says that the skin of a davar acher is royal achila. You walk into any bodega, they have these buckets of these things on the front. It's fried pigskin. That's what they do. They take it and they fry it and they use that instead of potato chips.
What about cough medications, antihistamines, Otrins, Tylenols?
Pills or capsules or liquid?
Talk about all three.
Okay. Before we opened the pharmacy in MBGS, we sought Hayra from Rabbi David Feinstein's Chal Vracham and Yibal Chaim, other Gedalia Paiskim, and they said like this: a pill. Now, again, I'm not going to say it over and over. I'm going to say it one more time. whether it's a medicine or a supplement or a nutraceutical, it has to be boduk and menusa, that is something that works, not some new guy, some guy in Arizona living on a mountaintop decided this is going to, heal your ingrown toenails. It has to be an erlich, is something that actually works. They said a pill, without any question whatsoever, you can just swallow it, because that's not considered a derech achila, and that's not considered a chila. You can take it.
Even those that have like the shine, the sugar shine.
Even that has a sugar shine, even those that have lactose in it. And I asked him, I said, you can use a lactose pill right after fleischiks? He says, if it's a pill and you're swallowing it, it's not a problem. Now, that's pills. Capsules, you have two types of capsules. You have vegetable capsules and you have gelatin capsules. So for a medication that's boduk, all poskim said you can swallow the Rebelsky is also said, except for Rav Henkes. I'm not going to get into that. I don't want to stand here and Hashem contradict that. But all the poskim we spoke to said that it doesn't have a din of a food item. It's hard. It's like a plastic. A real medication in a gelatin capsule you can swallow. If you cannot find something that's better. Now, what is always an option for a person that wants to be agahitten is transfer it into a plastic, taking it out. You see some people, they open the capsule, they put it into apple juice or into applesauce, they kill the medicine. Because what happens is, your stomach, the first stop when you swallow something in your stomach is like a battleground. It has acid, it has gefährlich, it's mamashi, agahitten veren. You should never find yourself in such an environment. The medicine gets destroyed there. The reason that there are capsules is because the capsule protects the medicine till after it goes through the stomach into the intestine, and that's where it gets absorbed into the body. If you take it out of the capsule and put it into apple juice, by the time you finish with it, there's nothing there. So you have two choices. You can put it inside a vegetable capsule, or you can empty it out into a vegetable capsule. To take a hard cap, if you have other options, is something that I don't understand. And then the syrup is a real problem for two reasons. First of all, because it's flavored. That's the one concern. And also because it's very sweet and it tastes good. The sweetness comes from the glycerin. Glycerin has to be checked out. It's irresponsible to take something. If it comes Shabbos morning, your kid wakes up with 105 fever, you don't ask any questions. Certainly you can use it. But if you have time to make a phone call to the company and say, I'm buying this, and don't make the assumption because Tylenol is good, that means that the off-brand, Maker's Mark, or whatever they have over there, this kind that you find in CVS, is going to be the same. You call up and you find out whether it's acceptable. Here's the problem. The liquid gels are usually in soft caps. Soft caps, that means that the like vitamin D3 and things like that, fish oils, things like that. That's what you're talking about? Yeah. Those are always made with gelatin and almost always made with trefa gelatin. And soft gels, not one single place said you can use. Because you have other options and then there's no reason to... All the places said you cannot use soft gels, unless it's kosher. There is a line of cod liver oil now that it comes in soft gels, that it's under the case. It happens to be a special production from special shchutais, and it's kosher gelatin, but it's made from real gelatin, bovine gelatin.
Is there any sugar substitutes that are good for Pesach?
The ones with the good achsherim. There's nothing inherently problematic about it. In other words, there are two different sugim of sugar substitutes. There is stuff that has kidney shenashtana. That means it's something that they made a fermentation of, and I don't get into the whole machlekes whether it's mutter or not. But then you have other things like xylitol and other things that has a different shaila that they're made they share kalim with other problems. Very few companies have the volume that's necessary to be able to dedicate equipment just to one specific type, especially with these little niche things like xylitol. Now they have these other things, monk fruit and these other zachen that use the same equipment to process, so it's certainly appropriate to use something only with a reliable hechsher.
Is there any chocolates that you hold of?
I have to be makdim that I don't eat chocolate. I'm the only person. I don't eat chocolate. I don't like chocolate. It's always. As a matter of fact, one of my children. So I'm Nissel, right? I can't say this. I got it once. There's a place in Toronto that makes special Chol Yisrael chocolates, hand dipped. It costs like $10 each. So someone once owed me a favor. I don't even know why or what. He brought me a little box like this. It cost $65 for a couple of these things. So he brings it to me. So like the Meister of Nissan Adler. I told him, "Oh, what a wonderful thing! I'm so happy. I'll save it for Shabbos." He said, "Wonderful." And once he walked out, I asked one of my sons was there. And I said, "I'm not going to eat this." I said, "Are you a chocolate person?" He said, "Nein, Tate, ich bin a Torah person, was gleich chocolate." So I would assume that you're looking for Torah people that like chocolate, yeah? Okay, Schmerling, very, very few chocolates at all are made in kosher plants that have dedicated equipment. They all kosher their equipment. Now, here's the hadrogas of the concern. If you are making something from non-Chol Yisrael, that means that you have blias of potentially, if you're makbid on Chol Yisrael, and you're makbid on the kelim and blias of Chol Yisrael, that means that you have blias of Iser. That means you need real koshering. So good. So the Hechsherim say it's an Eini Ben Yaimai, so it's only Drabanan, and anyways, Chol Vakum is an Iser Kal, and it's not a problem. Whatever, make all your cheshbon, it's fine. Do whatever you want. But L'maisa, if you want to be makbid on a Gor Geherige koshering, Schmerling is the one that I know. I've been working with this Rav for many years to upgrade, and at this point they make a Geherige Libun Kal B'Makom Hagolo on their equipment, and Schmerling would be that. By the way, Stam, it's a mitzvah to say over a Maaseh from a Rebbe. I think Chaim Kanievsky qualifies as a Rebbe, no? So my son told me that he has a friend who was in the Kollel in Vienna, and he came to Eretz Yisrael to speak to Reb Chaim. And when they finished, he got up to leave. Reb Chaim told him, "Efshe das es kedai as a Yid as Aviach soll a bissel mehr nizer sein in Bosse B'Cholav." And the guy like, the guy was so ugly, and he didn't do any. He was going crazy. He couldn't imagine what it was. Finally figured out that his one nachas ruach in Einik Shabbos that he had is there was a chocolate, one of these fancy European chocolates that he used to eat after Shabbos, after the meal. This was his Einik Shabbos. And he looked into it, and the koshering wasn't so beseder. So next year he came back to Reb Chaim, and he told him, so he asked, he was amazed upon him, he says, "Aber wie hat der Rav das angetappt? How did you know?" So Reb Chaim looks at him like, he says, "A person that's not in Israel and Bas B'Chalov, there's a tzura of a gedi on his forehead." So you should keep this in mind before you go to see Reb Chaim, before you go see anybody like that. You wear your hat down by your braid. I don't know what else they can see.
Any chocolate that is processed with a Yiddish plant?
There are the chocolate chips. The chocolate chips and the chocolate coating. Baking chocolates are made in lines that have both kosher and not kosher milk and powders, but the volume is so much that the b'derech klal, the companies that are made here in the United States are made on power of equipment, mamish by zufel, because it happens to be that way. Not that they wouldn't kosher, but they don't need koshering.
Regular chocolate you buy in the store,
so the Eda chocolate that's made in Eretz Yisrael, the only thing they'd be koshering from when they kosher is Chol Yisrael, so it's not the heter, make your dinner mutter anyways. They always use shar mashkim, and now it's mamish davar be'itim matoiv. It's in the Simonim and Hilchas Koshering and Hilchas Pesach about the Ramah says it's b'di'evet to kosher with shar mashkim, and they use oil to kosher with, so that's one b'di'evet. Another b'di'evet is that some of the oils that they use, like palm oil, is a solid at room temperature, and Reb Moshe writes, he says, it's a difficult thing to say that something, you know what, I don't have to make this up, go into any store, we have the coconut oil, they have that thing, it's a white solid. That's not a shortening. If you go to buy Crisco, it's a white shortening because they take soy oil, they hydrogenate it, and they put in emulsifiers, so it becomes a solid. The coconut oil, that's the way coconut oil and palm oil at room temperature is a solid. Ramesh said, that's shemen, that has din of shar mashkin. So,
which other companies? Shuf,
I wish you'd stop asking me.
Many other companies that are made 100%?
I don't know. I know that's like I said, Once I find one to give people an answer, the Schmerlings. It used to be Genève used to have the v'lover, and the v'lover told me that he kashered his stuff with water, with the regular hagolah, and they were supposed to keep it. Now they have the b'dats. So, yeah.
A few years ago, I made a tumble about seaweed.
Yes.
We found basically every brand with every hechsher had Taylor minutes.
Okay.
The Velover, because of that, everybody made a recall. And the Velover, because of that, made a new shipment with Kunma Shechem.
Okay.
That was done. I don't usually eat seaweed. It's not my, whatever.
Yeah. It's like quinoa. You should eat as much as your bubba.
Are you updated with anyone that is good now, or I don't know?
You know, instead of trying to figure out what's good or not good, here's the real truth. Checking it out is you can check out a box like this thick in 5 minutes. You hold it up because if anything's there, you see it right away. So you just hold it up to a light box, hold it up to light, and in a second you see it. Usually, the places that you're talking about, I mean, people don't go around eating seaweed. So you're talking about sushi.
Right.
Yeah? But you're not going to eat sushi without a hashgacha. A hashgacha that doesn't make the mashgiach check each piece, you shouldn't be eating this stuff anyways. So you should ask the hashgacha. If the hashgacha says, no, it has a hechsher, you shouldn't be eating the sushi. So, but the mashgiach should be checking it.
If anybody wants to... Is it?
The mashgiach, let me tell you something. If you have a place that's making commercial food without a mashgiach, it's right away a siman that you have to be careful what they're doing. If the only people is you have the one yid who's the owner or his brother-in-law who's out of work, standing at the cash register taking money, and that's the only Yiddish person in the whole store, and you have 3 Mexican and a Polak in the back making your food, and you don't have a mashgiach, it's... Okay, so you want me to say it again? I'll say it again. Any store where you don't have a Yiddish person involved all the time in the food preparation is a problem. Not the guy checking out, not the maitre d' seating the people in the restaurant, not the Baal Bus 2 floors up in the office trying to meet with some lady who wants to make Sheva Brachas for her daughter. None of that. A real, honest to goodness Yiddish person. If that's not... So call them up and ask them. Call them up and ask them what they're giving. Call them up and ask them. That's an excellent question. If they don't want to answer you, then that's the answer. That would be very nice. Let me explain you something. Let me just tell you something. Ma'aser Shaya. You remember a number of years ago, it was about 12 years ago, when they had that Ma'aser in Muncie with the meat, with stuff, right? They called a very big meeting over here in Borough Park, and all the Kashrus people involved in Kashrus came to participate. And they, the person that called the meeting was a very big pikeach, and he knows that if he calls one person to be the peseach and not the others, he's in trouble. So he didn't ask me, he just announced that I was going to be the first speaker. I didn't hear him, somebody else told me, because it never occurred, I didn't go there to speak. So I took the microphone and I said that it's very appropriate that we're meeting about this because the Satmar Rav once said that there are many chazakas that the Gemara lays down. He says today, it's not pashut that any of those chazakas any longer apply. He says the chazaka, the ein adam parei chayv tax money, that you can still depend on. But every other chazaka, you have to be concerned, maybe it's not so stark. And I made a point of saying that at this meeting right now, if every person sitting here will be makabel, they will never again give a hashgacha to food service without a mashgiach, you'll change the world. And everybody was nodding, and one person who now gives more hashgachas than anybody else in the world jumped up. You're being mechar from a God of Klal Yisrael. You're being Moshe Shemra on the halacha of Eidech Misurin, and and after he finished 5 minutes of yelling at that, everybody else said, "Okay, fine," and that was the end. So that was that one sliver of time when Klal Yisrael could have gotten what they deserve. And this Rav is now very rich because he gives many achsherim. I will not tell you who it is. I'm sorry? You know, yeah. Take care.
Anybody has any shilas could ask him the place. The Rav will answer while you ask the shilah.
Avos?
Heche.
Auf a pilot. Erstens darf ein bisschen wusser pilot von was man redt, ja. Als der Fleck zu sagen, als jede oven, jede stove hat der pilot, was sie jetzt in der Sonne, und sie zieht, und das ist, was wenn der Ramon sagt, als mit Zinton Esche, mit Esche Shal Yisrael, ist es sicher so. Ja? Aber Hand, es ist nicht so eine Sache, wie man hat der pilot. And in companies, is sich beglaun nicht benimmt, als man soll haben a pilot. In so es do andere Patenten, was sie haben, Marshall, in a fryer, was man, so wenn man stellt an, an electric element, was se wird sehr heiß, und se bleibt heiß, so das meint, as a chelik from the hits, from the oil, is angegeben von der Yid. But there's, the Bishli Yisrael is it's a very difficult thing to touch up, because it's a machlekes rishonim. The machlekes rishonim is because some rishonim use the lashon that tzarich lahafachai le'esha shel Yisrael. This meant as nicht nur as says mizan a fire was an episode from a yid, aber wenn the was the yid tit mis the zan as the fire was brennt, so zan is this heißt the yiddish flame. We rather Moshe schreibt in the Chivas as because of that, well, it's to have a siman that is Eisha Shel Yisrael. Rav Moshe says, as man darf es noch mal uns in einmal a Woche. Wir können es nicht uns in den Leuten lassen, weil man vergesst die ganze Sache, das ist ein jiddische Geschäft. Und Ramah? Is there a yid that's going to say, we cancel of the Ramah? The Ramah, mi piyam anochai. How can you say? Svardim, wir will machen sein, das Beis Jesus, Gesundheit, aber zu sagen, als man kann es schämen sein für Ramah?
On a sakis in the fish.
Yeah.
Which fish today have no problems with on a sakis? Or you have to be machmir or not? What does the Rav say?
Well, Rav Belsky, standing here, said many times that when the Gemara says me'aleka ravye, and that the fish, the anisakis is not a problem.
Reb Chaim is machmir.
I don't know that. I don't know that Reb Chaim eats fish. I don't know what he says. Rav Wosner's Anikel told me that the people that presented Shiloh lied to his grandfather, lied to Rav Wosner, and Rav Wosner didn't say us. He said, he tapped on that they weren't being honest. He said, according to the way you're explaining it, it would seem that it's also. I know for sure that when they went to Rabbi Yashav, they certainly lied to him about what the Metzias is. So, and when Rav Belsky went to talk to Rabbi Yashav, they wouldn't let him in.
What do we have to be concerned about Shemitah coming up next year?
About what?
Shemitah, yes.
First of all, I want you to know, it's a mitzvah in Farsim. There's a gewaldige shefa this year in the wheat. One of the guys I work with where we make our matzahs, sent me pictures of the wheat. It was very dry, and then suddenly there was a verfeisung, and there's a knei hara, halvai, it should go like that. But there's a tremendous harvest that they're looking forward to. A beautiful crop of wheat in preparation for Shemitah Mir Hashem. The things that you have to know is that, first of all, there's machlekes minhagim in Eretz Yisrael. The Yeshiva Yoshin, the Bedats, the Perushim, always held certain shittas about if a guy owns it, if a guy does it, what's considered that, and there are certain kulas that they use. The shittas of Chazon Ish, it's much more machmer. So, but you have to know if it's coming from Chutz La'aretz, which latitude. But it's certainly, you have to be very, very careful that what they're bringing in needs to have a very good hashgacha.
So you buy fruits in the stores, your vegetables. How could you know?
Right now there's stuff coming in from Eretz Yisrael that has problems from Costco. The people don't know this. Costco is part of a co-op that is based in Eretz Yisrael. And Costco, peppers, citrus fruits, a lot of these, and they don't market. It's in their own product. And you have to be very careful with that.
How do you know? He asks.
I don't buy it in Costco. What?
What else?
It's because the peppers they frequently have from Eretz Yisrael. I tell people not to buy in Costco because of that. So it depends. It's on the outside box. If you can find it in the box, Al pi their Chacham Medina, they're supposed to have here whenever you sell vegetables. The law is that it has to be the box has to establish where it comes from. So you go into any one of these. Tell me when it happens. You have to. So if you have L'mashal, we buy in MPGS. We buy our fruits and vegetables from you, and he sources and he goes to the market. He knows where he has to go when he brings our stuff. So potato chips. There is pretzels is not Pas Yisrael. And people say, good, so there are people that are not makbid Pas Yisrael. Bishul is not an option. You don't have a choice of saying I'm not makbid Bishul. So if something is ra'oi to be concerned about Bishul Yisrael, then you need to have it. So there are many places who hold that potato chips are cheap. It's not lefes b'is pas. So it's not negated to have Bishul Yisrael. Pretzels because that's pas. Now, so therefore, if you're makbid Pas Yisrael, you have to be makbid Pas Yisrael on pretzels, because for some reason that's called Teir Lechem. But Bishul Yisrael, it's not left. You need a number of criteria to be chayiv in Bishul Yisrael, right? It has to be not nechel k'mo shechai. It has to be nishtan machem bishulei. It has to be oilo shulchem lochem. Subscopic lafes b'is pas. So, potato chips, many people hold doesn't meet that requirement. Okay?
Shem Igish would like to thank our Rabbi, Yechezkel, Auerbach, Shlita, for the wonderful chizuk that tells our Rabbi. Today she is new to see the day and observe wine trouble, the nishmas imor, Hifke Basar Tzvi, Aleh Shalom. And by side, the Evish Alva, Evish Alva, Chak Kosher, Sameach, with Simcha, Vanach, and Felach, Yomtiv. Abcham Nakashem, Rot Gishboch, Lazaki, Sal, Vekiribram, Toimitzis. Shalem, and Rechovas, my Tzitka, Yagdil, Teure, Viadi.
Right. You have to assume. If it's not Amen. 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 Yehei Shmei Rabban Barach, Nolam Lomei Mayo. Amen. 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 Okay, unless it says that it's not called Yisrael, it's not powerful.
Same question. Stam, Chol of Stam.
Auerbach was also a company, a Hechsher that says we're not the Auerbach is ripping a Kufi Dalit going to festival. So Ramesha invented the word because he said that the concept of